Hello guys, this is Brown Brazil here. Today is not a vlog today. I'm going to tell you a story. The story of my father. This man, right here, changed everything. So, this story started out on, January 7th, 2011, year 2011, and I was at my grandma's house, and my grandma was alive at the time, and me and her and my brothers were downstairs getting ready for school. We were going back to school. So my dad was still upstairs getting dressed, and he was about to take us to school, to drive us to school. And when he came downstairs, I remember Dad telling Eddie, go get me and your grandmother some coffee. And Eddie did. Eddie went into the kitchen and brought out 2 cups of coffee for Dad and Grandma, and the TV was on. What? No. Yeah, the TV was on, watching Fox 59 News as always, looking at the time. And all of a sudden, Dad gets a call on his Bluetooth earpiece phone that he had, and it was from Mom. And Dad and Mom was arguing on the phone over something. I can't remember what it was, but they were fighting. And from that, Nathan was sitting on the stool next to Grandma, like he always did. And when Dad got off the phone, he was like, "Ooh, that bee!" I can't cuss on here. But, and then all of a sudden, Dad starts shaking. He starts grabbing his chest, and he was screaming in pain, like in pain. Just screaming in pain. Like just yelling and screaming in pain. And Grandma was like, Eddie, are you okay? And Dad was like, no, Mom, no. And Dad was like, just grabbing his heart. He was in pain. And Grandma was like, oh my God, Dennis, he's having a heart attack. So, and Grandma was like, Dennis, go get him a heart pill. And so my Grandpa Lindsay dashed into the bathroom and got 2 little baby pills, and Grandma was like, Edward, take these. And he took them, but the problem was he was spitting them back out. And Grandma was like, Dennis, call the hospital, he needs to go to the hospital. And so the hospital people arrived, and they put Dad in a bed that would carry the patient out to the hospital car, and I was crying. I was scared, I was crying, and I was like, Dad! I was crying. I didn't know what was wrong with my father. And so Grandpa was like, Eddie, take your sister upstairs. And so Eddie, my brother, took me upstairs, and Eddie was holding me while I was crying. I was like, Dad, and I pushed Eddie away, and I turned around, and they carried Dad out, and the last words that Dad told me was, I love you, sissy. And I was like, I love you too, Dad. And I was still crying, and Eddie was still holding me. I was still crying, and later that night, when he was in the hospital, all day I prayed to God, saying, God, please keep my dad hanging on. Please keep him hanging on. And so I waited, and waited, and waited. And, everyone came over, and, Mom was freaking out. She was crying because Dad was in the hospital. And what the problem was that it turns out that from Dad smoking that stupid spice stuff that chemical stuff. It busted his groin vein, and his chest was pouring down blood. And then later on, Grandma asked me, "Brianna, do you want to go to the hospital?" And I told her yes. But then again, I told her no because I didn't want to see Dad like that. I didn't want to see my own father on life support because I didn't want to see him like that. And so, later on, I waited, still prayed to God, saying keep him hanging on. And then, about the time around 12:17 a.m., Grandma came home, and there was a rose in the little vase thing, and she put it down, and she was like, "Eddie, Mason, Brianna, I have some bad news for you." And she told us, and she said, "He's gone. He's gone. The doctors couldn't do anything to save him. He's gone." And with that, I broke down crying. I was upset more than ever. And I was like, no. He can't be gone. He can't. And so Eddie came over and started hugging me and trying to comfort me. And I was like, no, he can't be gone. No. That day on January 7th, that was the hardest day ever for me. And my grandma had to keep me and my brothers away from school because of losing my dad. So we had his funeral on January the 22nd, 2011, and we went there, showed up, all of our friends and family showed up, and we had his funeral, and downstairs the people were cremating my dad. And then after a couple of weeks later, when the funeral was over, we got his ashes right here. Got his ashes. And now, still to this day, that memory has not left my mind. Every time I think about it, it's tragedy for me. I would have never have thought to lose my own dad. I always thought he was going to be there. But I guess God gave me an answer, and he said no. It's hard for me to tell this story. I do miss him, and still think about him. He's always in my heart, and I know that. But anyway, guys, that is the story about losing my father. And I wish I could have been at the hospital to try to at least save him, but even if I did try to save him, it still wouldn't do no good. He still wouldn't have come back. But if I just only showed up at the hospital, then maybe there could have been a chance of saving him, but there wasn't. And I knew that, and I'm sure of it, that he was probably waiting for me, for his own daughter to show up. But no, I didn't. And I wish I could have been there. But that's the story, guys. That's the story. Alright. Ending the video.